Welcome to Arts News, friends. I'm Jimmy Ray, here with you every Friday morning to talk about people, places, and things to do here in the arts world of the Ozarks. This week, Bulgarian organ music comes to the Ozarks. We talk with Wild Bob's Musical Book Club and the Ozark Mountain Daredevils 3-day curtain call concert series. That and more. Let's go! And opening tonight, November 7th at 5 p.m., the Waverly House Gifts and Gallery will be a show entitled Journeys, a juried show and fundraiser featuring 17 regional artists and a variety of media. Johnny Strickler will be playing jazz guitar at the opening reception, and proceeds will benefit the Springfield Little Theater supported theater experience for young people of all abilities. This exhibit will continue through December 13th. Waverly House is at 2031 South Waverly in Springfield, and that opens up tonight. You can visit their website at waverlyhouse.com. Evangel Theater Department opened up their season last night with The Last Lifeboat by Luke Yankee. It will be running tonight, tomorrow, and a matinee on Sunday. More information can be found at evangel.edu, The Last Lifeboat. And Jury Theater presents The Spitfire Grill, running next week, the 12th through the 15th, as well as the 19th through the 22nd at Sunderland Studio Theater. More information at jury.edu/theater. Bluegrass and newgrass icon Sam Bush brings his band to downtown Springfield at the Gilloys tonight. Tickets and information at gilloystheater.com. It's Sam Bush. I'm Jimmy Ray. You're tuned in to Arts News here on KSMU, and a very intriguing performer coming to town. Gail Archer celebrates the release of her 11th album, Dobrich, a Bulgarian Odyssey. It's a very interesting sound, solo organ, and a lot of this stuff that she does continues her sonic journey through Eastern European composers. This new album is more contemporary. We'll talk more about that and her upcoming performance, which will be at Kingsway United Methodist Church on November 9th at 3 p.m. And with me today on the phone is trailblazing organist Gail Archer. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Tell us a little bit about how you got started in this world of organ. Was this something that you started very, very young?
Yes. I started to sing in the church choir when I was 8 years old and started playing the piano about the same time and saw organs from my earliest years. And then when I grew a bit and my legs were long enough at age 13, then I went over to the organ, and here I am. I still direct the choirs at Columbia University, and I play about 50 organ recitals in the U.S., Canada, and Europe during the year, every year. It's an interesting life, and I developed it over a long period of time. But choir and organ is my passion, and I've been lucky enough to be able to pursue that.
Now, when folks say organ, there's a lot of different organs out there, but what we're talking about here are the large pipe organs that you see in church. Is that correct?
Yes, the organs are found sometimes in churches, sometimes in synagogues, sometimes in a concert hall at a university or a conservatory of music. We'll have an organ inside the building. Sometimes when you're traveling abroad, you'll find the organs in concert halls or in churches or synagogues. Or as I just said, university settings. And the organs are all different.
So they kind of each have their own personality, like almost like a fiddle or a violin or a lot of these instruments that kind of have their own spirit to them.
Very much so, and it may depend upon who the organ builders are in that part of the world and their sonic universe, what they think is a beautiful sound or what registrations they include or do not include. So you're always adapting a bit as you travel, and it will depend on the number of keyboards. Some historic keyboards in Europe are only one tiny keyboard and no pedals at all, and then you might get to a cathedral church and you'll have an organ with 5 keyboards and full pedals, and so you have to adapt the program you're playing to the instrument that you are visiting.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned whenever you got your legs long enough at 13, what that means is you are playing pedals with your feet, the lower octaves, right?
That's absolutely right.
Yeah, wow.
Your hands are playing on the keyboards, and the piano training, of course, is valuable because you learn fingerings and key signatures, just basic music reading as a youngster.
Yeah.
And then when you have to put the pedals below and read that bass clef, an extra bass clef, we're reading on three lines of music, right
Wow.
hand, left hand, and the pedals. Your eyes have to open up to read properly the third line, which is the part for your feet.
Yeah, I've always felt it was so intriguing how folks a piano, you've got two lines, but now you're talking about a third line of notation here and what that must take just through your eyes to be able to interpret that in real time as it goes by. As you start to train on an organ, you mentioned it could be one keyboard, it could be two keyboards, and each one has its own kind of different inspiration or build to it. As you go from town to town and venue to venue, you find yourself having to get acquainted with each one of these. And also, I've seen somewhere there's knobs and stuff on the walls. Is that the kind of stuff that you deal with as well? And what is that doing exactly?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Those small knobs are called stops, and there'll be a section of stops that relates to each of the keyboards and a separate set for the pedals. So if you have a three manual organ, for example, three keyboards, there'll
Hmm.
be three sets of stops for the three keyboards, and then another fourth set of stops that refers to the pedals. So that means that there is a rank of pipes for every stop. You're pulling the stop out, and the air rushes through the channels in the chest from the bellows and goes through the pipes for that particular rank. And so you have to have a
Ah,
pipe for every single note. And some of the stops are called principal stops. That's the main sound of the organ. There are flute stops. There are reed stops like trumpet and oboe that literally have a reed, a shallot in the pipe. So you get that reedy sound. And then there are mutations and mixtures. So organists have to learn about the combining of all the various types of pipes, which have different shapes and
yeah.
sizes. It's a very complex instrument.
Yeah, it sounds so interesting. And every time I've seen one, I've always wondered about the anatomy of it. So it's so good to talk with someone who's so experienced. This is trailblazing organist Gail Archer, and she'll be in Springfield on Sunday, November 9th at 3 p.m. over at Kingsway United Methodist Church. That's located at 2401 South Lone Pine Avenue here in Springfield, celebrating her 11th album, but also some other organ material. And so let me ask you something before we move on to the concert and some of the pieces. A little bit more about the organ itself. You mentioned the reeds and the flutes and these different types of pipes. So, are these decisions that the composer makes, or are these decisions musically and sonically that the performer gets to help mold the sound with?
That's a wonderful question. In early music, and by that I mean 17th, 18th century, there's very little to guide you. But what we do have are the instruments themselves. There are instruments from the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries that are still playing every day in Europe. And when you have a chance to go, that teaches you an awful lot about what was available to the composers. And of course, there are some books from the period and some writings by the composers themselves that give us a little window into what their ideas about registration were at the time. But more modern composers, I can think of Olivier Messiaen, who passed away in 1992, a contemporary 20th century French composer. He was detailed in leaving us directions about the exact stops he wants us to use in his music. And so you're likely to find more directions about registration in modern music than you have in earlier music.
Very, very cool. Talking with Gail Archer here. And just to give you a bit of context here, American Organist magazine said Gail Archer should be commended for her commitment to recording music from beyond the well-worn path. An experienced and prolific recording artist. She's on her 11th album entitled Dobrich, A Bulgarian Odyssey. And so this new this new album that you have, Gail, I took a listen to it, and it is very interesting stuff. Your other albums, your other 10 albums spanning from the 17th century up to the 21st century. You mentioned before we hopped on the call that this particular new record is more of a contemporary piece. How do you make selections? How do you decide what to record? Do you do any writing yourself, or is this a celebration of past composers? Give us a little idea of your recording history, this new record, and just your philosophy around music selection.
That's a wonderful question, too. In this particular case, the Bulgarian CD came about because Pavel Madzarov, who lives in Bulgaria, he was writing about Bulgarian organs and organ composers, and I reviewed his book for the American Diapason magazine, which is published in Chicago. And then I was connected to Pavel, and Pavel told me that there were 14 new volumes of organ music published by the Union of Bulgarian Composers. And so I received that whole collection from Pavel and picked out a program of pieces to learn. So I played through many, many of the pieces in these volumes and picked out an hour-long program and learned it. Then I went to Bulgaria on some grant monies that I got from Vassar College and the Harriman Institute at Columbia University, and went to Dobrich, where there's a beautiful concert hall and lovely organ. And I recorded the music in Bulgaria a year ago, and then played it live in front of a Bulgarian audience, and that was fun.
Wow.
The audience recognized many of the folk tunes that are woven into the classical music, and the irregular rhythms and the harmony that's so distinctive to Eastern Europe. They're not using the do-re-mi scale in every case at all. They're using Eastern European scales. And so the harmony is so remarkable and very different from Western music. So it's really a journey to another culture. So I have recorded a Russian CD, a Ukrainian CD, a Polish CD, and this Bulgarian one is the fourth one, because most organists are playing Bach and French Romantic music, which is so very familiar to audiences. But there is a wealth of remarkable music in Eastern Europe, and so my mission is to shed light on it, record it, go there, play the music for their own audiences, and it's really been a learning experience. I'm always curious and don't want to play music that is played by many, many other organists. I want to do my own independent work. And so this project is just the next step forward in that project.
Yeah. Well, as I listened to it, I could definitely tell musically that there was something else going on there. And you touched on it there, saying that there's these other, it's not the same solfege that we use here, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do type thing. When I hear it, I hear a dissonance to it. But is that really the right way to describe it? Are you using the Western notations, or is this a totally different type of vocabulary that you're reading?
Oh, no, the notation is normal.
Okay.
Same thing that everyone else would be reading. But what is not the same is the rhythmic unfolding of the music. For example, there's a dance in Bulgaria that uses 9 beats, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, T. And so you've got 3 2s and a 3. And the Bulgarian tradition of folk dancing and folk singing is very strong and very much alive. And so that wonderful irregularity that comes from the music that's passed on by oral tradition, which in many cases is not written down, but the people there know it.
Yes.
And they can then incorporate that music, that rhythmic irregularity, into the classical music. And they do that absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah.
One of the pieces I am playing on the program, Poliniale e Tudora, is a famous Bulgarian folk song and does literally use that 9-beat pattern in the music. A woman composer who is alive, Ratosferta Hurkova, she lives in Yambol in Bulgaria, And she took that folk song and made the most wonderful arrangement of it for the organ. And so that's the first piece in the Bulgarian set I'm playing.
I'm Jimmy Ray. You're listening to Arts News, and that was Gail Archer, world-renowned trailblazing organist who's coming to Springfield for a concert to celebrate her newest record, which is her 11th album, and it features all Bulgarian music played on pipe organ. And you can catch Gail this Sunday, November 9th at 3 p.m. at Kingsway United Methodist Church. And Gail's joining me on the phone today. That was going to be a selection from her concert. Gail, what else do you have planned for your concert this Sunday?
Then I'm playing a piece by Bodisvar Ashenev, and he wrote that for the dedication of one of the organs in Bulgaria. It has this wonderful shimmering sections where there's no time signature at all. You're just reading the notes in these wonderful bell-like sonorities. It's really very beautiful. And then the third one by Chernishmev is a set of 2 frescoes. He means them to be kind of sonic painting, and those pieces are also full of these over-the-bar kinds of rhythm, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3, where the accents are on weak places in the measures, and none of it is regular. You can't really count 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4 in this music at all, because it is so unexpected, and that is intentional, and that's also what I find so interesting.
Yeah.
This is not traditional, simply counting 2s, 3s, or 4s, as we musicians do so frequently. None of it is regular. And the harmony, sometimes they'll be using an acoustic scale, sometimes they're using octatonic or pentatonic scales, just not the do-re-mi scale at all. And some of those scales are part of the folk tradition of the folk instruments that are used in non-Western places. And so they're tapping into that music that's passed on by ear, by oral tradition.
Yeah. You know, I do a lot of bluegrass music, and it has similar traditions of passing down by ear. Folk music has a special place in our hearts, and I think it always will. And you continuing that tradition is beautiful. You can catch Gail Archer performing here in Springfield, and she is a world-renowned organist and specializing in a lot of stuff, choir and organ, but this time around looking at some Bulgarian music as well as some other organ music here in Springfield, Sunday, November 9th at 3 p.m. at Kingsway United Methodist Church, 2401 South Lone Pine. You can head over there and listen to some incredibly unique organ music. You can find more information about Gail and her past recordings, upcoming tours, and this new record at www.gailarcher.com. Gail, thank you so much for joining me, and have a wonderful concert here in Springfield.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jimmy Ray. Welcome to Arts News. And Wild Bob's Musical Book Club is back. And here to talk a little bit more about it, special guests Paul Ferris and Emily Higgins, performers. Welcome, friends.
Good afternoon.
Now, this ain't the first time we've met. We've both got to work in the studio together and play music together. It's great to have you all in on this capacity.
Great to be here.
So Wild Bob's Musical Book Club, we were just kind of talking before we hit record. It's been happening a long time. I don't know exactly. I know I was part of the first one helping to produce the record of the first round. How long, Emily, have you been doing the Wild Bob's thing?
My first book was Life on the Mississippi by Mark Twain, and that was the year 2014.
Wow. How about you, Paul?
My first book was True Grit. I think that was also 14, but I'm not dead sure.
How often does this happen? Is this a yearly thing?
It used to be once a month.
Oh, wow.
The crowd started dimming, so they made it quarterly.
Yeah.
And we're getting a pretty good crowd that way.
So the idea of Wild Bob's Musical Book Club, Emily, folks don't know what it is. Give our listeners just a little insight to it, and then we'll talk about this in the upcoming show.
It started out, and it still is of the same vein, to challenge local singer-songwriters to become inspired by a book that they would assign.
Okay.
And then your assignment, should you choose to accept it as a songwriter, is to read the book, or if you've already read it, you can skip that part, and you identify with some component of the book, whether it just be the concept of the book itself or a character in the book,
right,
a mood the book set, something that upsets you or excites you or something, but you'll grab onto it usually pretty quickly, is what I've heard collectively throughout the years with other members that perform, is that it just kind of snapped out of the blue. Paul was just telling me that in the lobby, that happened with him as well. And so then they write this song and they show up at the event, and they're usually given a good month or 6 weeks to read the book and complete the song. And then you show up and these songwriters take turns. There's usually a dozen or more.
Oh, wow.
And we take turns playing our song, and it's amazing because it can be a one and done, or some people, including myself, have gone on to perform that song with their bands.
Yeah.
Or as solo performer. I've seen a lot of those songs get legs and keep their legs throughout the year. It's really cool.
Well, it's a great prompt, right? As a songwriter, I mean, sometimes all we're looking for is a nugget of inspiration.
Right, yeah.
And when you're going through your daily life, sometimes that inspiration's harder to find. So when you have a constructed prompt like this, I think that helps. Paul, whenever we're talking about the upcoming show, it's at Lindbergh's, which has been the home of Wild Bob's from the beginning. It's coming up next week, Thursday, November 13th. The show starts at 7. Of course, they got food and drinks there and a stage. Lindbergh's one of the oldest music venues and taverns in town.
Good chance to get up on that stage.
There you go. And so what author or book are we looking at this time around?
Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, which I picked out. I read it years ago. There are some unfortunate sexist references in it, but it was World War II. I read it again, and it's just as hilarious and great as it was the first time around. I've seen a number of people saying, gosh, I'm not sure what I'm going to write about. A book like that, you pretty much have to grab something in the book specifically. Some books you can just kind of generalize maybe something about what the whole book was about. Generally, when I write stories off of these books, it's usually a thought that pops into my head when I'm reading the book and has nothing to do with the book whatsoever. But that's perfectly acceptable. Whatever you want to write about as you're reading the book and something you're thinking about, do it. It's so much different than regular book clubs in that we don't sit and talk about the books. And everybody, she was saying while we were talking out in the lobby too, it's so interesting to hear people get up on stage and talk about what they're writing about and why they're writing about it, because everybody gets a different perspective, of course. And maybe that's the most interesting part of the whole evening, is just finding out all the different perspectives on the very same book that you just read and say, yeah, I never thought about that. That's a good point. It's a fascinating evening, it really is, and it's a good book. We're not sure what the next book is going to be yet. We haven't decided. But
how's that work? Do you guys have a board?
Yeah, there's 3 of us, me and Murray Hutcherson and Phil Bridges. We hash around different books and decide on one, and now we've got 3 months to decide.
Yeah, it's such an interesting conglomeration of the arts, obviously, literature, reading, songwriting.
And poetry. We can't forget poetry. We're inviting poets, too.
Very good. Okay,
Yes.
so folks could read and just have a poem ready, not just necessarily a song.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
So, Emily, are you a regular as far as performing and participating?
Yes and no. There was a period of time I moved to a rural area for 7 years. I'm now living back in Springfield, but for the years that I was living in Springfield, I never missed one, hardly. And then during the years I lived 80 miles east of here, I was a little bit more selective about making the trips, specifically not coming in the wintertime or whatever. But this will be my 23rd Wild Bob song.
Wow.
So I've had a lot of inspiration.
Yeah. Why do you keep coming back? What is it about this club, this musical book club, that keeps you coming back?
What keeps me coming back is the community of it.
Yeah.
And it's the collaboration of it. And I heard you talking last Friday about collaboration with your guests on your show. And I think it is the one thing that is vital to us in our creativity, is having that collaboration and a shared experience. And also what keeps me coming back is it keeps me from pigeonholing myself into a certain style of writing.
Right.
You know, before Wild Bob's came along, I would sequester myself, you know, on a Sunday morning at home and feel something and start writing music. And I thought for many years that's the only way I could possibly write a song, is if I had quiet and concentration and all that. This is the opposite. It tasks you to pretty much do a commissioned piece.
Yeah.
And also it challenges you to crawl outside your comfort zone and approach songwriting in a different light. And then you go out there and you share it with others. And just like Paul was saying, to go to these events as a performer and sit there and listen to your buddies get up there and explain what inspired them about the song. What's really cool is once in a while you will experience a thing where one of the other songwriters or poets will have caught the same idea you did, but they express it in an entirely different way.
Yeah.
So it becomes a different animal. And it's just very cool to observe that and just to watch everybody, as Paul said, explain their story behind the song is equally as powerful and entertaining as the song itself.
I love this idea of folks talking about their process and talking about how they arrived there or what they took away from it. That's a whole nother angle here, you know?
Absolutely.
So whenever we're talking about performers this time around, Paul, who do we have on the roster?
We got 16 people this time signed up, and that's probably where we'll have to cut it off. It depends on Lindbergh's if they have something lined up or not. But this week we have Timmy Miano, me, Phil Bridges, Murray, Kevin Cott, Krista Meadows, Jared Norman, Luke Acker, Jack Bowden, Bon Tyndall, who will be reading a poem, I'm sure, Dalton McAdoo and Dallas Hughes, Earl Holmer, Josh Head and Ken Bogart, Emily, and the Rising Odds are the lineup for this time. Elaborate on what she said, I know a lot more musicians in town because of Wild Bob's. We've met a lot of people and made a lot of friendships through Wild Bob's. You know, that's a wonderful aspect of it, too. Thing about getting up on stage and doing one song, as a performer, you know, the first song that you get up and do on stage is never the best one that you do, just because you're getting warmed up and kind of getting the feel of thing. At Wild Bob's, you get one song and that's it. So it's always great to watch people get up and just give it their best shot in one song. It's not an easy thing to do. It's never an easy thing for me to do, and I play 3 or 4 times a week. You know, that's a great aspect of it. Pretty sure we're going to be having a little concert series featuring Wild Bob's performers. The only requirement to be a performer is that you have to have been on the Wild Bob's stage at least once.
Okay.
We're talking about Shoe Tree Listening Room as a possible venue. David and Sandy seem to be in agreement with it.
Beautiful.
So we're going to get together and talk more about that probably after the first of the year. What kind of a format we're going to do, we don't know yet. Emily suggested in the round. I'm thinking 2 people in a 2-hour thing, 45 minutes each, maybe have 4 or 5 people a night. We're still talking about it.
Yeah.
See what people really want to do.
Yeah.
Not everybody is a performer with an hour set, so we'll just have to see what people want to do and work it that way. But it would be nice for people just to be able to get up and do more than one song if they want to.
Well, it'd be great if it landed over at the Shoe Tree. They got their new spot over there.
I was there Saturday night, and it's nice.
What does it take, Emily, if folks are out there going, man, this sounds really interesting, I'd love to be a part of this, or at least give it a whack, maybe become part of the community. How do people, do they got to reach out? Do they got to email? Is it just something where, do you have to submit auditions? I mean, how does this work exactly?
I think you just sign up. I mean, I've seen over the years many people who have been there for the first time.
Yeah.
And then I've also seen people who come one time and don't come back again just because maybe it wasn't their process, or maybe that's all they wanted to do was one.
Sure.
But that's neat to watch too.
Yeah.
And then you see other people, like I was shocked when Paul said Kevin Cott's coming, because he was the first year that I started doing Wild Bob's Musical Book Club. Kevin, I was so blown away by that guy. And so I'm thrilled to hear he'll be back. But you meet these people and you either only see them one time or they become a part of your outstretched community of songwriters and performers. It's really very cool.
I love it. We're talking about Wild Bob's Musical Book Club. They've been doing it for a very long time. Folks read a book and write a song based on whatever they took away from that book. It's a very cool concept, and their next performance is coming up next Thursday, November 13th, at the home of Wild Bob's Musical Book Club, Lindbergh's, down on Commercial Street. It starts at 7 p.m., and the book will be Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. You can find them on Facebook, also a very robust YouTube channel.
Every performance has been videoed, and they're all on there.
So a great way to get to know it, a great way to look back at the years of performers and content there. Very cool. Wild Bob's Musical Book Club next Thursday, November 13th at Lindbergh, starting at 7 p.m. as they perform their songs inspired by Joseph Heller's Catch-22. Emily Higgins, Paul Ferris, thank you so much for coming in, and good luck with this installment of Wild Bob's Musical Book Club.
Thanks so much.
I'm Jimmy Ray. You're listening to Arts News, and it's been more than 5 decades since a ragtag group of friends in Springfield, Missouri picked up guitars, fiddles, mandolins, and more and said, hey, let's make some music. That band, the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, took the world by storm. Now heading into a curtain call concert series, as they're calling it. It's presented by Kaleidoscope, and it marks a stepping away from touring. It doesn't mean they won't play here or there. They're not in full retirement or calling it quits, but as far as the long tours across the country, that is coming to an end with a 3-day run at Hammond's Hall on November 13th, 14th, and 15th, each night having its own personality. On Thursday, November 13th, the Ozark Mountain Daredevils will perform once again with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. On Friday, November 14th, a special opening act called the Generations Concert will warm up the stage for the Ozark Mountain Daredevils with local musicians playing some original material, but also a lot of B-sides from the Ozark Mountain Daredevils that they don't play in their set. A lot of collaborations between different folks in town, and you never know who might show up on stage. Following that opening set will be a full set by the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, and then on Saturday night to round out this curtain call concert series on November 15th, it's an evening with the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. Today we take a journey through their story from the porches and the jams in the Ozarks to international recording sessions, hit singles, touring triumph, and this closing chapter of their touring days. And the Curtain Call concert series presented by Kaleidoscope next week, November 13th, 14th, and 15th, with different programming on each night, something for every musical taste. More information at hammondshall.com or theozarkmountaindaredevils.com. It was 1971 when the seeds of the Daredevils were planted. Songwriters John Dillon, Randall Chowning, Larry Lee, and Steve Cash, joined by Michael Supe Granda and Buddy Brayfield, came together in Springfield, setting aside their early band name of Family Tree and even toying with others like Burlap Socks, the Emergency Band, and one night joked about calling the band the Cosmic Corn Cob and his amazing Ozark Mountain Daredevils. It stuck somewhat in an abbreviated sense, dropping the amazing and the Cosmic Corn Cob part of it and just leaving the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. Their sound was of the Ozarkian region, a mix of country, bluegrass, folk, rock music, and the kind of harmony and instrumentation that's born in the hills and hollers of the Ozarks. One music historian described their sound as a ragtag collection of hippies, bohemians, and musicians of no fixed ambition who nonetheless found their voice making music rooted in this place called the Ozarks. From there, a band demo caught the ears of A&M record executives. They found themselves in a whirlwind of rock and roll show business, working with famed producer Glenn Johns, who'd worked with the Beatles and The Who, Led Zeppelin, as well as the Eagles, flew to London and recorded their debut record at Olympic Studios, which garnered the hit single If You Want to Get to Heaven, reaching number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100, and their follow-up album It'll Shine When It Shines featured the smash hit Jackie Blue, which climbed to number 3 in 1975 and became their signature song. But preferring the streams of the Ozarks to the glam and glitz of Hollywood, the Daredevils stayed here, recording more records and touring extensively. The Daredevils didn't fit into one category. It wasn't rock and roll, it wasn't country, it wasn't folk, it wasn't bluegrass. It took all of those genres and mixed them together, playing to adoring fans all over the country and the world, creating recordings and a legacy that endure today. I caught up with some folks who are going to be participating in this Curtain Call concert series from November 13th through the 15th at Juanita K. Hammond's Hall to hear a little bit about their roles, whether it be band members themselves in the Daredevils or folks surrounding them for this Curtain Call concert series. That and more on this 2-part series on the Ozark Mountain Daredevils and their Curtain Call concert series presented by Kaleidoscope next week, November 13th, 14th, and 15th. A lot of folks to talk with, a lot of stories to tell. But today we have the man who was there from the very beginning, Michael Supe Granda. How are you, friend?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Jimmy. Yeah, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I feel good, and I'm looking forward to coming up there.
Yeah, and so you're in Nashville, right? Been there a while.
I've been in Nashville 34 years.
Wow.
But I still have a large portion of my heart and soul still is in the Ozarks. So it's always fun to come back up.
Yeah. You were a St. Louis kid and then came down, was it for college?
I was born in South St. Louis, lived there until I graduated high school, came down to SMS. I guess MSU now. But in 1969, it was SMS. Hung out with the guys in the band, started a band, lived there 21 years. But the reason I came to Springfield was to go to college there because they had a beautiful arts and theater department, and that's what I was into.
Did you meet the fellows right away, or was this something where you had to kind of weed through some other cats, or was it kind of a magical, mystical moment where you guys all met up and then, boom, you were off?
Well, I came there in fall of 69, and I met all the guys, John and Larry and Cash, all those folks. I met them, but didn't really get together and play music with them until December of 1971. So I was there a couple years before we started the group, and once we started, we knew it was full steam ahead.
Yeah. So right away, you guys knew you had something good here.
Yeah, I knew from the first song. I'd been in a dozen bands. By the time I got to Springfield in 1969, I'd already been a band leader in St. Louis for 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so when I was down there, I kind of already knew what to do, and more importantly, what not to do.
And for anybody listening wanting to start a band, what do you not do?
I'm not going to use the words because they can't be broadcast on the radio. Don't be a blankety blank.
Gotcha.
You got to be a good hang if you're going to do this thing in show business, huh?
You got to be a good hang. You got to show up on time. Part of being a professional isn't just about playing all the correct notes for 2 hours while you're on stage. Being a professional is also not being late the next morning to climb on the bus.
Yeah.
Not being a jerk. Not being a diva, not being difficult in restaurants and public places. It's just all, and when we got together, it was a bunch of really good guys, and we had a really, really nice long ride.
So let's talk about that ride, because just a ragtag group of rock and rollers and folkies, or whatever you might have called yourself or felt that you were, labeled yourself. How do you guys actually land in the lap of somebody in show business who can say, all right, you guys got something, here we go, and then just hop on the train and roll? I mean, how do you actually break through to that? Because after all these decades, people are still trying to do that. So how did y'all actually make that happen?
Well, we were kind of in the right place at the right time. We sent a demo tape to Good Karma Productions in Kansas City, who was the management for Brewer and Shipley.
Yeah.
I love Brewer and Shipley. I love their sound. I like the acoustics. I like the acoustic instruments. I like the voices. I liked what they were saying, what they were singing about. And we got a record, and we had this demo tape. We sent it to Kansas City, and it piqued the interest of the people up there. Now, when they went to Los Angeles to conduct some Brewer and Shipley business, at the end of the meeting, Stan Plesser, our manager, said, "Oh, and by the way, I have this new band back in Missouri, and here's their demo tape." David Anderle at A&M Records heard the tape, heard about 2 or 3 songs, turned off the machine and said, "I'm signing these guys." It happened that quick, Jimmy.
Wow.
I don't think that happens these days, but in the early 70s, that's how quick it happened. To this day, I still pinch myself every morning when I get up to make sure it's not a fairy tale.
So all these years later, maybe 50 some odd years later, after those first incredible records, which you got to work with Glenn Johns, which is obviously a dream come true, I mean, he was doing the Beatles, obviously, right?
Stones, The Who. Yeah, he had his fingers in a lot of pies.
Yeah.
And we were just one of them. He dug us, and we dug him. We made 2 really good records, and that's now it's 54 years ago.
Wow.
Yep.
So looking back at those kind of early days when it was really the hype of it all, I mean, you guys were really all over the place. I mean, this wasn't just America. You found yourself obviously in London with those guys making records, but then the touring, this wasn't just some sort of regional deal. The touring was explosive. You guys went all over the place, didn't you?
Yeah, we went all over the country. From Florida, Seattle, Boston to LA, we were everywhere.
Yeah. And these were bigger kind of showcase shows to where you maybe multi-bill acts. So, I mean, looking back, who are some of the highlights that you got to be on the same bill with or pass in the studio? Who were some of your rock and roll moments there that you have to pinch yourself now to think back and go, wow, that really happened?
Yeah, for months and months, we were a package deal with Chicago and the Doobie Brothers. And we were the opening act. Dozens and dozens and dozens of gigs. And then the other people we kind of hung out with quite a bit was the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. We're very good friends with them. We played a lot with Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen. In the very beginning, we played with the Flying Burrito Brothers. And there was a band out of Great Britain called Fairport Convention that we played a lot of gigs with up and down the West Coast. Yeah, it's been a wonderful, wonderful ride, brother.
Wow. So you guys, though, even though you were in this company and had the record deals and were taking planes everywhere and getting groomed by the record company, making sure everywhere you went was wined and dined and having a good time, why did you stay in the Ozarks? I mean, you guys didn't want to end up going to L.A. or New York or anywhere like that in the beginning. I mean, you're in Nashville now, but why was the decision made to stay where you guys were here in the Ozarks?
Well, there were two things that happened. We put out the first album, If You Want to Get to Heaven, was a hit. We put out the second album, Jackie Blue, was a hit. A&M knew they had something. After Jackie Blue, they said, okay, give us Jackie Red.
Right.
How about Jackie Green? How about Jackie Brown? Anything. Give us Jackie White.
Sure.
We said, well, we don't approach our music like that. And they said, why don't you move out to Los Angeles? You will have better access, easier access to, the Tonight Show, the Mike Douglas Show, Sonny and Cher, the Smothers Brothers.
Yeah.
And as a group, we all sat down. We all had young families.
Yeah.
We all had started young families, and my kids were swimming in the creek. They were having a great time.
Yeah.
They were eating fresh vegetables out of the garden, and I didn't want to uproot my young family and move them to Los Angeles.
Sure.
So I could go on the Sonny and Cher show.
Go do the monkey dance.
Dance, monkey dance, yeah. So we decided to stay where we are because you dance with whoever brung you to the dance.
Right.
And who brung us to the dance was our friends and family around the Ozarks, our influences, and we just decided to stay. We said, well, thanks, but no thanks. We're going to stay here. A&M respected that decision. And, we could have made a lot more money.
Right.
We could have had a lot more fame. I might have been able to date Cher. But none of that was important. So we stayed home, but we stayed back in Missouri. And, it served us well, buddy.
And you never know how it could have went, but many people who did the monkey dance thing down in L.A. or whatever, they burnt out real quick, and they sure as hell ain't playing anymore. So here you guys are 50 some odd years later, man. I mean, it's a blessing.
We're a fortunate group of men.
So does music still excite you guys? Is that part of the longevity of it? Is it the humor in the group, the brotherhood? What keeps it going for all these decades? I mean, is there a secret sauce?
Yes, the crowds, who after all this time still come out to the shows.
Yeah.
And when I see them digging, Stand on a Rock and Chicken Train, Jackie Blue, If You Want to Get to Heaven, when I see them digging it,
yeah,
I go, well, maybe this is all worthwhile, man. Yeah. And guess what? They pay me to do this.
Pinch yourself again.
Exactly right, man. Yeah. So, it's been a great ride, buddy.
I'm talking with Michael Supe Granda of the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, founding member and one of the notable personalities throughout the decades. You guys have obviously had a lot of folks throughout the decades come in, and I've heard the term spare devil as people come and go and help you fill in the musical landscape. But you guys have been touring with a lot of the same cats for a long time now, and as part of this kind of, we call it a final tour. It's not a retirement. You guys aren't going to stop playing completely, but is this kind of the end of the road when it comes, literally the end of the road touring, as far as we're not going out for 2 weeks at a time, we're not going out for a month at a time anymore? If we find something around here or there that feels good, we might do it. Is that kind of the scenario that we're looking at here?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I just came off the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Out, and that is a young man's game.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty beat down today, but I'll be okay tomorrow. Yeah. Now, we're going to stop touring. I'm tired of, 9.5-hour drives. I'm tired of TSA agents and long lines of security.
Yeah.
It's gotten very rude out there. People have gotten rude, and I don't really want to interact with them anymore at airports and, coffee shops and restaurants and hotels. That part of our career is over, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Now, as artists, I will continue to write. I will continue to record. I will continue to perform only when it means something or when it's special. But as for that long touring, man, that part's over for us.
Right, right. Well, it's nice to have clarity and self-awareness about the whole thing. And it's also nice to hear that this isn't the complete end. Obviously, folks love you. It's been going on for over 50 years. This tour that you've been on now, it's been 2 years now that you guys have been going all over the place. And so as a finale to that, it's the Curtain Call concert series over at Hammond's Hall. This is happening November 13th, 14th, and 15th. 3 special individual shows where folks can come and kind of celebrate the winding down of this touring part of your career and look back at the different decades, celebrate in a few different ways. Let's talk about each of these. On Thursday, November 13th, you guys are going to team up with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra again, which is an encore of 2 or 3 years ago you guys did this.
A couple of years ago we did that, and it was just so rewarding. Yeah. I mean, good Lord, to stand in front of a symphony can be loud, man, and it's really powerful. And so we decided that one night will be the symphony.
Yeah, Springfield Symphony Orchestra. You guys have done this before, and I tell you what, I've got Kyle Wiley Pickett, conductor and musical director for the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, chiming in here because he absolutely had a blast. I was at the show last time it happened. I had a blast. Kyle, welcome to the show. Always good to have you here. When did you guys do the collaboration with the Daredevils? 2-3 years ago, maybe more?
Yeah, it's longer than that now, I think. I think it was almost 4 years ago that we did it, the first show.
Incredible. You guys put together a full orchestra, even some vocalists and stuff.
What
was it like for a classical cat like you, for an orchestra, to step into that rock and roll realm?
It was great, and it came about in kind of a funny way. My phone rang, and I see Ned Reynolds is calling. Legend.
You always answer when Ned calls.
You answer when Ned Reynolds calls, right? And he says, in his deep voice, "Maestro." I said, "Hi, Ned." And he said, "I have a question for you. Would you ever consider working with the Ozark Mountain Daredevils?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." And he said, "Really? I am surprised."
You do a great Ned, by the way.
He says, "Can I put you in touch with them?" I said, "Of course, of course." And so I think John called me. And he said, "You really want to do this?" I said, "Yeah, I definitely want to do it." And so we talked about it. I mean, it was probably a good 18 months of sort of prep before we even got to that concert, because of course they didn't have orchestra charts. So Bill Jones, put these orchestra charts.
Yeah, saxophone player, longtime collaborator member. Yeah.
And all those guys from the Daredevils, come to the symphony. I see them out there in the audience. And so they have a love for the music that I do. I love what they do.
Yeah.
And so they put together this show, and it is great. Part of what I think is amazing about them is that they play in so many styles.
Yep.
And for an orchestra playing with them, that's perfect. Because it's a whole bunch of styles. And it gave Bill, Bill had access to all the instruments of the orchestra. So, he did some orchestrations that are just the horns, just the brass section, a couple that are just the strings. There are some that use the entire palette of the whole orchestra. John tells a story on Colorado Song that, he kind of envisioned the sound of an orchestra when he wrote it. And it wasn't until we did it as a collaboration that he actually ever heard that sound happen.
50 years later, he finally got that sound
out.
So
it is a blast. It is a ball for me. I love it. And of course our joke is that now the chicken train has a conductor, so that's one of my favorite things, that I can be the conductor of the chicken train. Actually, that is one of my favorite numbers that we do. And that it's such a great joke because that's a one chord song.
Yep.
And then Bill made it the most complicated orchestral accompaniment possible for that one chord song, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
And no, I love it. I love those guys. I love working with them. We've done a couple shows now because we did it with them down in Branson,
right.
Same show.
Yeah.
And then I brought them to my other orchestra, which is Topeka.
Topeka, yeah.
We played a show together up in Topeka.
Well received?
Well received, yeah. Yeah, and then and now we get to do it again. So
Beautiful.
I mean, how can you beat that?
Yeah, indeed. It's Kyle Wiley Pickett with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. We're talking about November 13th, the first night of a 3-night run with the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. Each night, its own unique theme and own unique approach. The Thursday, November 13th, will be with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. Over November 13th, tickets or information, go to hammondshall.com or the Daredevils website, ozarkmountaindaredevils.com. Kyle, have a blast, and thanks for stopping in.
Thanks very much.
The Ozark Mountain Daredevils with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. Next Thursday, November 13th, is part of a 3-night curtain call concert series at Hammond's Hall with the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, and it's presented by Kaleidoscope. The second night of this 3-night run is a night of collaboration and legacy. It's called the Generations Concert. So what's going to happen? The Daredevils will have a set at the end of the night. But before that, in case our listeners haven't heard yet, there's going to be an opening set of local musicians of varying ages and collaborations and backgrounds, all playing to celebrate their influenced career from the Daredevils. Folks who have pulled inspiration from the Daredevils' music over the years, folks like Lyle Strickland, the Shandies, Amy Elizabeth Clark, and some of these folks have recorded Daredevil songs throughout the history. There'll also be Justin Larkin there, the Hillbenders, Molly Healey and her string project is going to be there. You're going to hear some original music from some of these folks, but you're also going to hear some B-sides of Ozark Mountain Daredevils tunes. Songs that the Daredevils don't necessarily play in their set anymore, but we know the wealth of songs and albums that are out there from the Daredevils. So this happened a couple of years back, 2 or 3 years back, and it was such a great time that Dwight and the crew decided to bring it back for Friday night, November 14th. They called it the Generations Concert. And then Saturday to close out the 3-day run at Hammond's Hall with an evening with the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. I caught up with Molly Healey, who not only plays with the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, but will also be performing as part of the Generations Concert on Friday night with her band, the Molly Healey String Project. And she shared her sentiment for the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, the Generations Concert, and the legacy of music in the Ozarks.
Hey friends, this is Molly Healey of both the Molly Healey String Project and the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, coming to you today to talk to you about how excited I am for the Generations Concert at Juanita K. Hammond's Hall. I think this is going to be the best night of all 3 of the concerts, mainly because we're going to have so many different musical acts on the stage, and we're all going to be digging up these deep cuts of Daredevils tunes for you to hear, and I just think it's going to be a very special night of music. These songs are going to live on forever, in my opinion, and I'm not a bit biased by getting to play with them over the last 10 years. But even if I was, I think it stands to reason to say objectively that these are some of the greatest songs that have come out of the Ozarks area in many generations. And we're excited to share them with you and celebrate them with you next Friday night. So we hope you'll join us, and we'll see you on stage.
Thank you, Molly. Folks, the Curtain Call concert series with the Ozark Mountain Daredevils at Hammond's Hall is happening next week, November 13th, 14th, and 15th, presented by Pam and Tom over at Kaleidoscope. A different show each night. More information at hammondshall.com or theozarkmountaindaredevils.com. And we will have more from Supe and others about this concert series next week on Arts News for a part 2 on this series. I'm Jimmy Ray. That's all the time we have for today, friends. We'll see you next Friday, 10 a.m. right here for Arts News.